you have small fights and big fights, depending on what time of the year it is. But you also have, and I think what makes it work for us, is we do actually listen to each other a lot of the time. But we don't have a role. We just sit in the morning, have a meeting, and see who has to do what. And it's every day is a new day.
Yeah.
He's not allowed to touch any money.
And make it happen.
No money.
Penny's in charge of the money.
Not allowed to touch money.
It's good.
In the old days, it was orange juice in a newspaper, but you don't. It doesn't get that anymore. But it's Alice is coming in. Yeah, so it's just an Alice now sort of in between. So now the meeting's three of us, and if we're away, Alice must run everything. There's no. I don't want to give anybody a job title.
Yeah,
I'm Niels's boss. This is my boss.
But largely, are you doing the vineyard work and like still? And so you're the one saying like, okay, we need to prune now, or picking is going to happen soon.
You can't. It's a together thing. It's I know when to prune, but I don't. Niels will tell me when to pick. When we're going to pick. He'll know, and him and Alice go and do the grape samples and know what to pick, and then we sit down and are we going to? Like Alice is very much involved in the vineyard now. She's loving the vineyard. So looking at more, she wants to know how and why continuously. It's fantastic, and it's making me remember things all over again and do more homework. So I like that side of it's exciting again. It hasn't just become a job anymore. So it's a continual why, which is good.
I think having a young person in the cellar and in the vineyard as well is they question everything, and it makes you reevaluate and look through everything again through young eyes and see what why you do things, and it makes you look at why you do things, and it questions are you doing the right thing essentially, even though you've got used to doing it year in and year out. So it's looking at things from a fresh perspective, I suppose, is the correct answer, and that's great. And Alice being essentially on her own, she's going to do marketing, vineyard, and the winemaking side. So it'll be all three. We obviously still there all the time to be there for the business side of things. But it's I think we work well as a threesome in the sense that we feed off each other and we discuss everything together.
Yeah.
So,
hi, Alice.
Yeah.
I think we need it's the perfect time for Alice to pop in. Hi.
It's perfect timing.
Were you just swimming in the dam, or where were you?
Oh, it's so cold. We've got snow.
I'm a swim, yeah.
Yeah, and this year there's only 6,000 bottles of it made. So how big is this vineyard that you planted, Penny?
Well, so we started off with 2 hectares. But because it's dry land, you're getting sort of 2 tons a hectare, so it's tiny. And now we've got the new block, which is 15 years old.
Yeah, in that vintage, 15 years old.
Yeah, 15 years old. So because it's so, we then started irrigating the new block because we had to, others we'd have nothing left. So it's we've now, what do we know? 4 hectares.
Yeah,
4 hectares under Shiraz. And what we have done is since the big drought, we've really gone back to basics and gone back to the soil. So we've been putting in compost, looking after each vine as if it's a newborn baby, just looking at the soil and starting from scratch. And hopefully in another 2 years, it'll pay off. The dream is to keep the old block as a dry land vineyard. I think it's sort of the backbone of what gives Luddite that, I always say to Niels, like a licorice on his wine.
I think interventions is a far truer reflection of what one does in the cellar. So yeah, certainly that would be it.
I'd say it is a wine where the vines are looked after and not done by a computer, where you actually pick a grape and look at it and then go, we're going to make wine from it.
Yeah,
it's not done via satellite or whatever the hell they're doing. You actually have to walk in your vineyard and get to know your plant.
Yeah,
taste the berries.
Taste the berries.
And love them.
Mm-hmm.
You like your vineyard, it'll
that's what a Luddite is, right? Like what is a Luddite? I get asked this question more than anything. What is a Luddite? You know, why Luddite wines?
Yeah. Yeah. No.
I will answer it for Chen because I've done my homework. So, so if you read, so that the whole thing with the Luddites is, it wasn't that they were stupid. It was that people lost their jobs because people got greedy, and you could replace people with a machine, but you had to have someone to run the machine, and they weren't being trained to run the machine, and it just became, they destroyed the machines you lost everything. So from Niels's point of view, I think it's a saying they smashed the machines. Ned Ludd we don't know if he existed, but people that were in that part of England used him they signed the petitions under Ned Ludd. And I think it just gave good marketing to people that were trying to prove a point that you can't make Coca-Cola or within it was the lace industry. I've given Niels a book to read, which he still hasn't read. It's all about the lace industry. It's actually the standalone of a product.
Yeah.
And then it was modernized and saying, if you don't like a machine, you're a troglodyte or a Luddite. But they were clever boys. They threw the machines out because they would keep their jobs. Niels's take on it was more, he can tell you his take on it from seeing what happened in big wineries.
Yeah. No, it was just I think, the Luddites feared machines taking their jobs. And I must say, I worked in some bigger wineries where I got to the point that at some stage somebody's going to put a bunch of grapes on one side, push the green button and take a bottle out the other side. And then you won't need winemakers. And essentially that's what the Luddites feared. So it's a hark back to doing things traditionally. We obviously have to use pumps. We have to use presses and those sort of things. But we're keeping it, minimal intervention. There's no reverse osmosis. There's no cross-flow filtration. There's no centrifuges. There's no bullshit. It's about just good grapes, good natural yeast, good barrels. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a lovely thing when you see a bottle of orange juice and it goes made from real oranges. Well, it's either orange juice or it's not. It's either wine or it's not. It's not made from real grapes.
What's an unreal orange, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what
yeah. I mean, I think that's why I asked about the minimal intervention. Like whatever bucket you put yourselves in or consumers put you in, I think the element of telling the story of a vintage is important. And I think that's one of the things that attracts me to South Africa so much, and particularly the producers I'm working with, and especially Luddite, is that the difference between 20 and 2021 Shiraz is pretty significant, right? And clearly the end of a massive drought where Cape Town had a day zero of water, right? Not borrowing, but taking water from Himalaya. And then you make a vintage of that, stressed out, intense little berries. And then you go to 21 where you finally have rain. And surely the vines need a little time to recoup from such a stressful 4 or 5 years. But the difference in that is significant, and you can taste that. And I think that that's something that is hard for not every region is like that. They're trying to make wine to a style instead of a vintage. And I think that every time you taste this bottle of Chianti, it tastes the same. Versus every time you taste a vintage of Luddite, it tastes of that vintage, and it's going to be different. And I think that's an important factor of what minimal intervention is. But it's a story. It's a piece in time. So I find the Saboteur White, there's like a kind of salinity in the finish of that wine that's really refreshing, and you got that crisp acid, but then there's that like core of salinity, which I think makes it ultra food friendly, but really interesting and really pleasant to drink. Is that because Bot River and the Cape South Coast is on the water, or is that a soil thing? Like, where does that come from?
Yeah, I think it seems to be a soil thing. It is also a Bot River characteristic. Once the vineyards get sort of over the age of 10, we tend to get a saltiness coming through on the Chenin Blancs especially. There is a touch of saltiness on our Shiraz as well on the finish, and that's definitely a soil-based thing.
Why do you have the crown cap on the Saboteurs? Is there a reason for that?
Who's
Yeah,
going to answer that?
we did not want to go down the route of a screw cap. We are not Australia. It works wonderfully, but we happen to be in Champagne, and Niels had this wonderful, if it's good enough for Champagne, it's good enough for Luddite. And that is the wonderful reason of doing the industrial type cap. Nothing to do with screw caps or be
She,
kind. Be
she says
kind.
I'm not allowed to be nasty about screw caps.
No.
No. So you're not a screw cap family.
So, yeah, very much in the same vein as the Saboteur White, obviously the partner to that. We want it to be juicy, crunchy, fruity as well, but also just to have enough texture and structure to make it serious. And I always say that there's something for everybody in that wine. And it's a wine you can drink on the terrace, slightly chilled on a summer's day. It's a wine you can take to a serious meal. It's got the palate weight, it's got the tannin to handle that, and but first and foremost, we wanted the fruit to speak. And I think aside from the balance of the wine, what really excites me with that is that you can pick up the 55% Shiraz, you get that sort of fruit and spice coming through. There's 16% Grenache in there. You get the red fruit from the Grenache. You get there's 15% Cabernet in that, and you get that dark fruit and a bit of backbone from the Cab for edgeworthiness, and then there's 14% Mourvèdre. You get this wild characteristic that we get from Mourvèdre comes through as well. And I think the year in that we allowed, it's a year in barrel and then a year in bottle, and that year in bottle just allows those cultivars to marry a bit better. But I do like that you can pick them up sort of when you're tasting you can pick them up in the glass on the nose, which is awesome.
I think the joy is that everything is tastes like it was made by us. There's no you can it's not a chocolate factory or it's every vintage is completely on its own, stands on its
Yeah.
own. So
Yeah.
that's what we've always wanted to do.
Yeah, I think that's something
It is a
just
bit of a meal.
yeah. I mean,